All right, I'm going to quickly go over the general gist of what I talked about in the lecture. It's already in the lecture. You can review the lecture as many times as you want. But then I also want to talk about some other stuff that's important to building your stuff. So in the lecture, I go through how to build a chair. Now, one of the things that you're always going to struggle with is you're always going to want to go really, really high resolution with your stuff. So the chair on the right side, oops, there we go. The chair on the left side now, because I've switched it, looks a lot better than the chair on the right side. Okay, so the chair on the right looks really blocky. So your inclination is to build something that is super duper smooth right off the bat. Okay, and you never want to do that. You always want to stick with as low a resolution as possible and then build up to that. Okay, so in 3D, anytime we build anything, we're dealing with very, very simple divisions. So in this one, you can see how few divisions I have on this chair. Okay, now watch how quickly I can rebuild this chair. Let's flatten this. Oops, wrong program. And I'm going to hide this other chair just because it's getting in my way. Faces, dude. Cool. I'll go here. Cool. So 1 space 1 space 1, perfect. And then I'm going to go to this, oops, this, that. There we go. Okay, super quick, I built that chair. Now, as you start building stuff, you will get faster and faster and faster at building things. So, if you start modeling a chair and it turns out looking like crap, delete the chair and make a new one. Starts looking like crap, delete it, make a new one. Every time it's going to be quicker, and every time it's going to look better. Okay? I don't care how many times you have to do it until you get fast enough where it doesn't seem like it's going to take you an hour and a half to build a chair. You literally, that took me like 2 minutes at the most, probably. Yeah, probably that. So you will get to that point. I had a student last semester who built a chair, and then his file got corrupt, and then he had to build another chair. The first chair took 3 hours, the second chair took 2 hours, the last chair took like 20 minutes to do, because he got faster every single time he did it. And the last time he did it, that chair looked 10 times better than the first chair that he did. Okay? So not only are you going to get better at doing your stuff, but you'll get faster too. And that speed and that quality will translate across the board into every other thing that you're going to build. Because everything we've done for the desk is the same exact stuff we've done for the chair up to this point. Okay? Now, everything is also low resolution. There's no crazy amount of divisions on here. If I started with a cube that had 1 trillion divisions in here and I started morphing this and shaping it, it would look chunky and disgusting and horrible. It would not work at all. So we always want to keep this super low resolution. Even when we look at, let's say, a character. Character heads are built with low resolution. Okay, even when we 3D. There we go. Even when we're looking at that far right head, you can see how smooth it is and how pretty accurate it looks. It starts off on the far left. It starts off with only a few divisions. Because on the far left, if I need to change the shape of the eye or the size of the eye, it's simply a matter of grabbing a few polygons and making them bigger or smaller, or simply just relocating it. Okay? If I tried to go with here and do anything to this, it would be pretty much impossible to easily move that eye shape without screwing up the rest of the geometry around it. All right? If I'm over here and I need to give her maybe an angry look, this looks like a girl, and girls are usually angry, so. If I need to make her angry, I just pull that one vertex down, and now her eyebrows are kind of pointed inward, right? So she looks kind of angry. Or if she's surprised, I pull it up, and now her eyebrows are up. Much easier to do than the far right one, which has 1 million divisions. So every time you model anything, we always go with something super low resolution and then make it more divisions and more divisions as we go. Okay, you'll see that throughout every single thing we do. Even if I'm doing, just so you can see it, even when I'm doing like a sphere, sometimes I'll work with a cube, and let's just do that, okay? So I can take this cube, and I could drop it into a subdivision surface, and now it's a sphere that's been stretched out. But the cool thing is that I can always jump back to that original cube and tweak just a couple points to give myself a different shape, okay? As opposed to starting off with that sphere and trying to manipulate that. All right, so on this chair, I did forget to put the lap thing in here, so let me just do that real quick. Edges, okay, don't need to restrict the selection. And loop, there we go. Has anyone downloaded the new Cinema? Did you get Cinema 18? No? You did? Okay. They released Cinema 18, and you use your code?
Yeah, I use the code.
Okay, so your code would work for Cinema 18. That one, they've redone some of these tools, so when I hit M, these letters have changed a little bit in Cinema 18. Like they've divided up some of the tools a little bit. One of the nice things is this loop tool, which is basically a guesstimate. I click and I'm like guessing where the thing is. I could adjust it with this, but it doesn't really help me too much. In Cinema 18, you can click and then there's like a little thing. Like I can say I want 3 or 4 evenly spaced lines right here. It's pretty awesome. We don't have that though. All right, so let's go here. Just take this and just scoot that down. Cool. All right, go to this side. Scoot that down a bit. There we go. That's happy with that. Okay. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to do the bevel on it. And the reason we do a bevel on things is so that the hard edges are no longer hard. We start off with a low resolution, we bevel it, we smooth it, and that creates something that looks pretty decent, okay? And every surface pretty much in the world has some sort of beveling or soft edge to it. If you look at, some of these things are pretty obvious. If you look at this, you can see there's a little bit of rounding that happens right to this. If you look at your monitor, there's a little bit of rounding. It might be slight, but there's a little bit of rounding that happens right at that edge. These bevels are not just for us to look at to say there's a nice round edge, but the way that the material is applied to it, the way the light hits it, the way that the final rendering looks, all of those things make that happen better and look better because of that bevel, okay? I'll keep that guy there just so we have him. I'm just going to do one more quick thing before I go. I'm just going to pull this up. put it higher back. It's kind of neat. And then maybe also kind of just pull that back a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. All right, so it's just a little bit more design to it. Cool. So if I go in here to my edges, I select all my edges. I got everything. I go to my bevel. I'm going to the wrong menu because I think I'm in Maya. Bevel, yes, there we go. And you'll see this in the video too. We never bevel the entire thing because it's a waste of divisions. Okay, if we need to edit anything later, it's just a lot of unnecessary divisions in here, especially in these areas there where we really don't need any beveling. I don't want any bevels there. I just want areas beveled where there's a corner, where there's a hard edge. Okay, remember in math class you have a circle. That circle is divided into 4 parts, and each one of those is 90 degrees. Okay, so 90 degrees-ish, so we have a little bit of flexibility. That's where we want bevels to be. Not along these areas here where there's just a slight movement, a slight angle to them. So that's why we use this Fong brake. There we go. And the Fong brake will select everything. Now every tool that's inside here, the bevel, the Fong brake, everything, they're tools. They're not going to do the work for us. So sometimes we have to go through and you have to look around and make sure you grabbed everything. Okay? It's more important to understand what's supposed to happen, making sure that you're getting the right results, than it is to just kind of push through and get to the end. Last night someone used a tool to extrude, and they noticed that their object was going like 2 different directions. They'd extrude it and it would go like this. And right away they could tell that's not what's supposed to happen. I need to stop, undo it, figure out why it's doing it. And what happened was they extruded and it went up like barely anything, like barely any size at all. When they reselected it, they were grabbing these side pieces. So this face that was supposed to be going just up, it was going up and out and down. So it looked really weird. But because we identified it right away, we were able to stop it, undo it, fix it, and then move on. Okay? So if my bevel, my Fong brake didn't select everything, geez, I'm lucky today. Look at that. It grabbed everything. All right. Let's pretend that it didn't grab everything, because I'm going to force it to not grab everything. So I'm going to grab my object. There he is. I'm going to take this angle up to 151. I think that'll work. I'm going to go to my Fong brake. I'm going to say select all. There we go. Okay. So in this case, my Fong brake didn't select anything. If we look at this, I may even stop the video when I was doing this part. That's what this Fong thing is. So when I click on an object, click on an object here, and I go to Fong, it has this angle. And it's basically saying that I want you to simulate being that rounded. Okay, so if I crank this all the way down to 0 and I turn my wireframe off so you don't see that, you can see every single facet of my chair. Okay, because that's what we had before. That's what the technology was at. It was basically you have a point and a point and a point and a point. I'm going to show you this flat face. Where eventually we evolved so that we could take those flat faces and blend them together so it would appear that they're smoother. Okay, so I haven't changed any of the geometry. All I've done is changed how we're viewing those edges and how they're blending with each other. So now if I take this up to a certain number, like, I don't know, 60 should be good, and I use my selection tool, and then I go to my Fong brake, what this is doing is selecting everything that meets that criteria of the Fong brake. Okay, so it's basically everything that's higher up than that angle. And that grabs all of those things. And then I can go through and put my bevel on. If I click the right button, I clicked the wrong button. I hit the right button. Why didn't you work? There we go. Cool. All right, so now I have a nice smooth chair right here. Now if I get to this point and I'm looking at the chair and I'm not liking it, what I want to do is undo it and fix stuff. Okay? So one of the things I may not like about this is the seat for my chair seems pretty thin compared to the back of the chair. So I'm going to hit undo. I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to switch to my side view here. Scoot this out of the way. Kind of a clear view of it. I'm going to grab the vertices. Oops, that's not how I grab vertices in this program. There we go. And let me just zoom in a little bit further, and then I scoot it down. Okay? So I've grabbed all the vertices of the stuff on the bottom, and then I can push this down, push it up, whatever I need to do to reshape that size. If I don't like the size of the back, I can do the same thing. I can grab those and pull them up or pull them down or whatever. So don't be afraid to go in there and start to tweak some of these things if you're not liking the way that they're looking. If you're not sure, copy it. Okay, hold Control, drag it off, do changes to this one. If you don't like it, you delete it. Then you still have the original. All right. But get used to these workflows because they're only going to happen more and more. Select that. M, S, click and drag. Cool. All right. And then my last step after I've done the bevel is to just add a smooth to it. So I'm going to go over here under subdivision surface. I'm going to create a subdivision surface. Then all I need to do is just drop this into that. Okay. Now this is another thing that will confuse you. As I drag this into it, you can see there's two arrows, that one and that one. That one and that one. So which one do you think is into?
That one.
Right. So drop it into it. Okay. So what that means is you have this subdivision surface. Anything inside that box, apply that subdivision surface to and make that the new object. Okay. So there's my object right here, all subdivision surfaces did. And if I go to display and I show my lines, I can see it has a lot more lines on it. Now here's a neat thing about this too. This little check mark, I can turn it off, turn it back on, turn it back on. Okay. I can even just pull this out of here, and now it's no longer affecting it if I need to. Okay. So that's definitely handy to have. So that chair is pretty much done. I probably should have put it under my table and verified the size before I did anything else. But we'll just see how close I am here. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Actually looks like it fits good. I can probably resize it a smidge. Okay. Now here's the other thing that's kind of something we have to pay attention to. My pivot is way down here. My chair is way over there. Okay. So whenever you create an object, the pivot surrounds that object, right? So my chair was created. I moved it over here and moved it up there. I modeled it and did whatever. And then I made a subdivision surface. Its pivot is here. And then I put the chair inside that subdivision surface. The pivot is still down here even though my chair is up there. So I want to move this pivot. So I'm going to go to this little guy here. And then I can just grab this and just move it exactly where I need it to go. See, I like to have it right by the object. And I could even switch to like the side view and line it up right with the ground. There we go. Then I switch that off, and then I can scoot him down. And if I go to scale, this is why we put it on the bottom. He scales from the bottom. If I put it up top, then he would scale from the top, and then he would go like under the thing. All right, that's huge. Let's just shrink that down. Oops. That's cool. All right, so that seems a bit more appropriate. All right, so there's my chair. Okay. Now everything you're going to be doing should have a bevel, should have the smooth. So even my desk, which is right here, right there, should have the same exact thing. So if I go into my desk, grab my edges, make sure I grab the under stuff, go to my Fong break, apply it, double check all of my edges to make sure that I grab the right ones. Everything that's at a corner should be good. Underneath, yep, everything's good. And then bevel. Again, I did the wrong one. M. Oh, I did B. I'm an S. There we go. Nice little bevel. Now, when we get into some of these, you have to be very careful because we don't want these crossing. So I'm going to hit undo and just zoom in when I do this, just so I get exactly what I need. Right about. You don't want these to cross, so I don't want to do this.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Right. So I just want to be very careful about that right there. Cool. Now, I don't actually need to smooth that out because when I smooth it, nothing's really going to happen to it, okay? But I'll do it just to see. So I make sure I'm in object mode. I make sure I'm in the move tool just so I don't accidentally do something else. And a quick way to do the subdivision surface, if I'm clicked on the object and I hold Alt, as I go to subdivision surface, I deselected it. Hold on. As I go to subdivision surface and use that, it automatically drops it in there, okay? As opposed to creating it, oh, it's way up here. Now I have to drag this up there, all right? So it's easier just to hold Alt when you go to it, it automatically drops it in. And then I'll turn this off. And then we can see what that looks like, okay? That definitely looks awesome. I would do the same thing to this thing here. You don't need to do everything for this project, but do it to a couple things, just so you can see the difference in why we want this and why it's important to have. Phone break, yes. And then, see on this one, I think I'm gonna do everything. I'm just gonna go like that, MS. That way the corners will get a nice little edge to it too. Cool. All right. So you see that little highlight right there? That's what we're doing this for, that little highlight. That highlight will signify that this is a solid object. If you look at something like, let's say this bookshelf, you lose that edge. You lose the fact that it looks solid. It actually looks like thin and papery if you don't have that, okay? Especially when we start adding lights and stuff into the scene. All right, so make sure bevels are on a lot of your objects, okay? Last time I showed how to do these little picture frame things. Same thing as a computer screen. I showed how to do the bookcases. You know how to do that. We need to start organizing our stuff too. Organization, you can see, is going to be important. As we need to select stuff, we need to make sure we have enough our stuff named. So this is going to be desk. Subdiv. There we go. I don't need to name the cube because it's just part of that. This is my chair. Subdiv. Okay, a cylinder, trash can. You get the idea. Okay, so you go through the list, name off all your stuff, whatever it is. You could even grab stuff like these, and then under object, you can group them. That way you only have to name one of them. Picture frames. Okay, same thing with these. Grab those and group them. There it is. Bookshelves. And it just makes it easier, especially staying organized in this area. Where's all these? Oh. Other picture frames. And watch how easy this is. Just grab these and drop them into picture frames. Boom. All the picture frames are together. And what is this? Stupid chair. We'll just delete that. That's nothing. That's nothing. Oops. Oh, that's my room. I can't delete that. And then this is my monitor. This is my monitor. So I will group those. Hotkey is Alt-G. Monitor. Okay. All right. So eventually you're going to get to the point. Everything is organized there. You've created plenty of objects in your scene. For the assignment, I want you to create at least a desk, a chair, and props around the room. Okay, there's no limit to the number of props you can have. It doesn't have to look like a completed room. I'm not looking for outlets and moldings and a bunch of, photorealistic stuff. I'm just looking for you to play with the tools. Okay. Once you get to this point, then you can start thinking of lighting and materials. All right. So with lights, there's a bunch of different kinds of lights that are inside here. We focus on, for now, we're going to focus on two of them, which is an area light or just this regular light. So a regular light is basically just a dot, okay? So imagine that this is basically just like a light bulb kind of in the middle of our scene. And what we use this for is to simulate actual lighting in our scene. So imagine we have a light bulb up top where we have a fan or something. That's where this could come from. We could also use this as like a light on the wall. Now it looks weird to just have a light on the wall like this. Hold on a second. Too much stuff is going to get behind this desk if I don't move that back. So I need to move these back against the wall. There we go. I don't know who moved those out, probably the kids. All right, so I'm going to take this light and I'm going to create just something here so it doesn't look stupid, because that looks stupid. I'm going to repurpose my trash can. Okay, so I'm going to control drag my trash can and just going through and going to my face mode. I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to grab the edges here and delete that. Okay, so now I basically have just like a cylinder shape. There we go. All right, so I'm going to take this cylinder shape and I'm going to rotate it. Click and drag. I can hold shift to flip it. There we go. So now I have a lampshade. That's the way 3D works. See how easy that is? And maybe we'll scale it down a touch. All right, cool. So imagine that there's a base underneath this. I can make a cylinder, or I can steal this base. No, I won't steal that base. It's stupid. So imagine there's a cylinder underneath this that looks like some sort of lamp base. Cool. So now I want to do is I want to render this. I want to see what this is actually going to look like. So your render button is up here. See that guy? Shortcut is Control R. So I hit Control R, and what it does, it's subtle, but it renders your scene. It basically calculates what the lighting is doing in the scene and what your materials are doing. So look at the quality of my bookcase here. See these jagged edges. When I hit Control R, that jaggedness goes away. The default settings are kind of sucky, okay? So on my light, if I go back to my attributes, you have a bunch of different stuff. So this is where it's going to get maybe a little bit complicated because I don't know where my pointer is. There it is. All of these tabs are ways that we can edit that light. Okay, so a light basically isn't like how many watts is it. We control stuff all the way down to the shadows that it has coming off of it, the caustics that it has, the kind of lens that we would be dealing with. Okay. So for the most part, you're going to spend most of your time probably under the general section where we would control things like the brightness and color of the light, the intensity of the light, what kind of shadows it has. For now, you can just set these all to ray trace shadows. And I'll set this to a visible light. Maybe that's too big, we'll see. I'm going to hit Control R to view it. Ooh, look at that. That light shape is way too big. We actually don't need that to be visible, so just turn that off. There we go. All right, so now the only thing I've changed here is I made my light a give it off shadows. So now I can go into the shadow tab and I can control these shadows. I can play with the density. And now by playing with the density of this, my light is still giving off shadows, but they're not as deep. Like before, they were all the way up and you couldn't see a single thing. So I crank it below 100%. And now we can see some of those other areas, okay? We could also change these to soft shadows if we wanted, and that'll give us a little bit softer shadows. Actually, those look better, so we'll just keep those. Yeah, this is all fine for now. I don't want to get into that yet, okay? Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, I don't want it to look like this is like a horror movie where, you know, the single light is lighting this stuff up. So I use this single light as a way to kind of indicate where most of my light's coming from. But then I create like a little fill light. Like there's another window where they left the door open and the hallway light is kind of filling in. So then I'm going to create an area light. And an area light is a square. Okay, so even if I resize this to kind of like a doorway, I could do that too. Whoops, rotate, there we go. Okay, and this one has on it, it's kind of hard to see, but it's this little indicator here, and then we have the square. So this is going to light up the rest of the room. So now when we hit Control R, now we're going to see that this looks more like it's in the evening or so, the light's on, it's illuminating the room, and the rest of the room is kind of still lit up. Okay, we can go and play with that light a little bit more by adding shadows. So these ones I'll tell you they're area light shadows because we have an area light that we chose. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. Come on. There we go. All right, now these shadows are looking pretty horrible. So let me go to my shadows, and I'm going to take my samples up. There we go. So that's making those look a lot nicer. Okay. So that's for our lighting. That's all we're going to be doing. So you can play with your lighting if you have some other items you want to add to your scene to make the lighting look a little bit more appropriate. If you have sconces in your bedroom or your computer room, you can add sconces or some other kind of lighting. If you want to play with some of these other lightings, you can too. I would avoid anything outside of the light, the spotlight, or the area light. Like these three, I would say go ahead and play with. Avoid the other ones just because they involve a little bit more setup to them. Okay? Yes, ma'am. All right, well, I'll be over there after I'm done. Okay, so model some stuff, add some lights to your scene. Next class, we'll go over how to add materials to this. The materials aren't crazy difficult. It's just a matter of knowing, again, what right buttons to click. Okay? And make sure you're saving. And I would also recommend saving as. If you go through and you are not saving different files, if that one file gets corrupt, everything you've done so far is gone. So save as to a different name. Make sure you're backing up your whole folder and keeping yourself organized. That's the other thing. All right, any questions?